So yeah, obviously you can see from the title, can't you, what this one's about. Good old Dr. Claire Smith tagged me in the 5 loves, 5 hates thing that's going around at the moment. And cause it gets boring, doesn't it? All these same old tags, you know, people put their own spin on it and stuff. So what I've done with mine is I've decided to make it a bit more difficult for myself and have literally no French fragrances in it at all. Because let's face it, most of my loves, or most of my not so much loves, shall we call them, are French, from French houses. I've also tried to avoid, you know, there's a lot of companies that base themselves in France that are perhaps not actually French. But that's a whole other video, isn't it? So yeah, also, I mean, it goes without saying, some of the, when we get to the dislikes, hates, whatever, that's a strong word, isn't it? There'll be some in there that are just not for me. It's not that they're bad fragrances or anything. Some are from my favourite house, one of my favourite houses as it happens, and some are just not for me. It's all subjective, isn't it? And including one of them, which I think actually is a masterpiece fragrance, but I just personally can't stand it. But anyway, let's get into it. Of course, this is me, so I'm going to try and make them not necessarily always fragrances that I talk about, but I do genuinely love them. It's just they're not often spoke about, and just to make it more interesting, isn't it? And I'm going to start with one from One Way Bridge, and that's called Polly, and that's the first one from the brand that I was lucky enough to sniff. I won an oil a long time ago now, and obviously I've since smelt the spray. Polly is I think I always describe it, we've all watched Lord of the Rings, and that's what we imagine New Zealand to be like, isn't it? Just this endless green with rugged little mountains and cliff sides, and just lots of green and untouched, unspoilt land where the elves and the hobbits live and such like. And Polly just creates that image. It's very, very green, and you can almost imagine the waterfalls coming off these sides of these mountains and stuff, almost kind of Icelandic like, but without the cold, more green. And the smells are literally like just miles of it, and you know what it's like when you get that fresh green, that spring green, and there's like the mosses on the rocks and the little green flowers that are coming through. Obviously I don't know what a lot of the flowers smell like down there, so there's that little touch of something unusual in there, and it's just a really, really bloody lovely fragrance. I'm not going to waffle on loads about them, but that's a love from One Way Bridge, Polly. Next up is a Swedoft, and it's not one of the two that I always mention, but it is actually I'd say one of my favourites that I've smelt from them again. It's absolutely fantastic. It's Barbarian. Now Barbarian it's got a bit of oud, and it's got this the cypriol, which isn't always one of my favourite notes, but it works in this. And also in there, this very kind of woody fragrance, there's a little bit of caramel, but it's not that horrible over gourmand, sticky, sweet kind of caramel you get. It's this, it gives the woods a kind of almost would you say, yeah, chocolatey kind of feel about it, and it is nice and sweet in the beginning, and it just kind of develops into this kind of dark, woody, chocolatey one. But the chocolate, because it's caramelly, if you get what I mean, is a bit lighter. It's not a hefty kind of caramel, and it just works. I'd say it's would you think of it as a Barbarian? Yes, like what a Barbarian really was, a kind of enlightened, kind of just different, just not Roman is what he meant, isn't it? But spiritual and decent, and it's just, when you look at all the notes, I'm not going to list all the notes because you don't smell them all, do you? But you wouldn't expect it to be such an easy, pleasant wear. Now there are little bits of the oud. Everything in the beginning, as you imagine with most fragrances, is a bit potent. It does stand out a bit, but actually I think it's a really tame, lovely, beautiful, darker, wintry, dark forests kind of just a good fragrance. And obviously again it's one of the darker Svedofs, so there is this kind of smoother leather. You know, you can imagine these people with their little leather pouches and their little leather outfits and stuff. Yeah, I really like that one. So that's a Barbarian from Svedofs. Next up is Arebos from Friendly Fur, who I believe again are Germans, or not French, even with a French name. It's this is a really complex fragrance, but it was one I loved. It's one I sent to a few people to sniff out, and I was surprised actually that nobody seemed to love it, because yeah, I absolutely adore it. It's one you wouldn't expect to be for me. It's kind of this very vintage smelling one. It is like a beautiful kind of, I imagine a Dior from the 40s, 50s. There's lots of notes in it, like the civet, castoreum. I don't obviously think they're real. There's caraway, which is a little bit like cumin, but they're not the dominant kind of bit of it, if you like. But they're in it, they're very much there. But it's not overly animalic and what have you. The citruses keep it sweet, and there's carnation, which gives it that spice, which mixes really well with the caraway. Which, like again, it's not as musty as cumin, but it has got that kind of edgy spice to it. And it's also it's very green. It's got galbanum in it and things like that. Little bits of leather. It's just like would I class it as a chypre? Yeah, maybe, but a very vintage smelling chypre with the greenness and the dry flowers and the spices. And it's just really, really nice. And it's like, I don't know, it's like a walk, but you imagine we're in the, you know, the 1920s, let's say, which we're in the 2020s, aren't we, coincidentally? But you know, with them beautiful kind of natural smelling perfumes with that kind of slight muskiness, that dirty muskiness from that period. Again, a lovely fragrance. So that's Arebos from Friendly Fur. The next up, there's going to be a few of them, wasn't there, in these lists from the bigger houses. So from Amouage, is not one I've spoke about a lot, but it's probably maybe my next buy, especially now as it's getting colder, is a Lilac Love. And this kind of Garden of Love range, from what I've tried so far, are not as challenging as what we're used to from Amouage, but they're very pleasant and they're still quite complex as well, actually. And Lilac Love, as you can guess from the name, has a beautiful kind of lilac-y syrup running through it. It's quite purple smelling, and it's just a very easy fragrance to enjoy and love. It's got white chocolate, it's got lots of woods and I get little hints of incense and things like that. So it's a really kind of beautiful, friendly Amouage, and it is very lovely. But it's one of them where you'll spray, you don't smell too much, you spray a bit more. It can be nuclear, it can be a bit much, and it kind of lingers around you all day. It's not going to fill a room, but trust me, it's there all day. And I don't need to waffle on about this one. It's lilac, it's woods, it's a little bit of white chocolate. It's a very enjoyable one. So that's Lilac Love from Amouage. And next up, and last in the kind of loves, is from April Aromatics, another German house that I've spoken about quite a bit. Obviously Amouage is Armani. Yeah, and it's Purple Rain from them, which is one I've spoken about, but not lots. And from the name, you can tell I love it. Again, it's another one with lilac, hyacinth. It's got violet in it. It smells purple, as you can imagine, and it's quite musky, and it's got quite woods, but it smells of fresh purple, like spring purple, like bits of green around it. The natural sweetness of these flowers, which they are quite potent and quite sweet, aren't they? And it all comes together just to create this kind of silky, lovely walk through the... I mean, the purple flowers come at the end of summer for me here, as well as at the kind of spring, and it's just that fresh, beautiful purple, isn't it? And it's quite transportative, especially when it's mixed with a green. You kind of get these beautiful spring days, and just that feeling of warmth from them, isn't it? As well as the kind of mysterious purple serenity. Obviously, as it goes on in the base, it's quite woody, and it's still quite purple. It just lingers. So yeah, don't need to waffle on. That's April Aromatics purple. So yeah, the dislikes, the hates. Again, don't forget, it's all subjective. It's all my opinion. Things work on us that don't work on other people. There's no right or wrong answer, is there, with fragrances? There's no need to sue anyone because they have an opinion. Nobody's saying anyone's fragrances are bad. It's just what we personally like, etc., isn't it? So first up for me is a Jo Malone. It's quite a new one. I don't think the Jo Malone would ever make this fragrance. Obviously, you can imagine it's called Cypress and Grapevine, so it's kind of got this. So yeah, it's got a cypress and grapevine kind of thing in it, and it smells blue to me. So it smells like. So where was I? Yeah, it smells very shower jelly. It smells very blue. One would also almost say it smells exactly like a very popular one from Dior. What's it called? Sausage? Sauvage? Yeah, it does. It really does. It doesn't have the kind of the ambroxan, if you like, the kind of full whack of that. It's not that bad. Well, that's subjective. People love Sauvage. But yeah, to me, and it really wound me up that it smelled like that very well-known fragrance. Yeah, so that's the reason I think I dislike this so much. And so yeah, for a very similar fragrance to Dior Sauvage, that even more than Dior Sauvage costs. If you love that DNA, you know it's all subjective, do go check it out. Personally, no, Dior Sauvage does that job, doesn't it? And there's in no way, shape or... I just can't imagine Jo Malone herself actually creating this fragrance. The real Jo Malone. So yeah, that's Cypress and Grapevine from Jo Malone. All subjective, of course. So next is a very, 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 very famous fragrance. And again, there's nothing wrong with the fragrance, and it's from one of my favourite houses, Tom Ford. It's the Note. And obviously it's the predominant champion note of this fragrance. There is a lot of other things in it, but it's Neroli Portofino. Now, nobody else really gets this, but to me, my oven cleaner must have Neroli in it or something. A kind of sharp, bitter, acrid, citrusy, Neroli, weird smell. And on me, it's just a really, really sharp note. Really sharp, and it just reminds me of cleaning the oven. Again, Neroli is quite a loved note, isn't it? It's, different people love different things, and it is, of course, this fragrance is very well known, very famous and very loved, so it is of course completely subjective. I don't have a lot else to say about it. It's not a bad fragrance, but I just do not like Neroli, and it just, like, you know, I can pick my oven cleaner up for 50p, well, not anymore, for about £5, and it does the same job. So that's Neroli Portofino from Tom Ford. Next on the list is from Penhaligon's, again, a grey house, nothing against the house, and it's ironically called The Favourite. This is one that Rose and Jones, Lizzie, whatever, somewhere there'll be whatever links. Anyway, it's you know, it's predominantly a rose fragrance, I suppose. Sharp roses, you know, it's very sharp, and it's not my cup of tea as a rose. But the particular dislike I have for it is it's got more ambroxan in it than exists on earth. And not only does that give me a headache, but it just adds to that sharpness. Again, there's nothing wrong with ambroxan. It just doesn't agree with me. Don't make it good or bad, does it? It's just doesn't like me. And because this one has an overdose in it, it just is too much for me. Again, nothing against Penhaligons. And if you're not a fan of something like ambroxan, then it's not for you. And a lot of the newer ones from Penhaligons seem to have a lot of these kind of aroma chemicals in them now. Of course, they're modernising. Nothing against them for that, but I'm really struggling with the newer ones. So that's the favourite from Penhaligons. Now, next up is a mystery scent to me, and it's a flanker to one of the best fragrances ever made, and it's another Tom Ford. So again, nothing against the company in that. Now, this fragrance, when it came out, was everywhere. It was hyped to hell. It was literally, everyone was talking about it. It's the greatest thing on earth. It's the best smelling thing ever. It's wonderful. It's amazing. It's just, you know, everyone had it. And then after them couple of months, I have never heard, it must have been, is it a year? Maybe as long as a year or a bit over. Nobody has mentioned it ever again. I have not heard or seen from it in forever. Even on Instagram with the shiny bottles, you don't really see this one. And yeah, that's a black orchid perfume. Yeah, what happened to it for a start? Do all these people just buy new fragrances, don't really have any passion for them, just to read the note? You know, it's all subjective. Won't go on a rant. But yeah, for me, it's got that sweetness in it. It's kind of that boozy kind of, is it plummy and whatnot? Does it have much to do with the original? Is it just this boozy, super sweet kind of generic that's very popular at the moment? That's all subjective, of course. And just because it wasn't my favourite, maybe some people genuinely love it, and they love it so much they never talk about it anymore. I don't know. I'm being facetious. Some people will enjoy it, and it's a Tom Ford, so you know it's good quality, etc., etc. But yeah, not for me. So that's I don't need to waffle on more. That's Black Orchid Parfum in the gold bottle from Tom Ford. Finally, we'll end this kind of the dislikes, the hates or whatever on an up thing, because this fragrance, I have to say, is one of the most interesting, wonderful, intriguing masterpieces I've ever smelled. And it is a masterpiece as far as my definition of it goes. But I absolutely, utterly cannot stand it. I cannot stand it. It gives me the chills. I'll go more into it, but Gucci Guilty Absolute. Is it Pour Homme? Did he still do? Yeah, they probably do. So Pour Homme. Now, to me, what it smells of is, my mum used to work in a nursing home. It was an old stately home actually, and it had all the leather and all that smell of things. But when someone died, in with all of that leather, that kind of dark leather, dark woods, was kind of a cleaning chemical. You know, it's quite a sweet cleaning chemical, but you'd known somebody had died. And I've been in a mortuary as well, grimly, and it's one of the smells in there. And I think it's the way the leather mixes with the cypriol, maybe. And look at the size of that, it's huge. Mixes with the cypriol and some of the woods, and it's kind of this obviously cypriol's dank green, and what it reminds me of, I don't know, is a coffin in the ground. It has the smell of the woods, of that kind of earthy, dark, dank, green graveyard smell, as well as the kind of cleaning smell that they use to cover up death. and it just gives me the chills. It literally makes my skin crawl. And I must admit, I'd smelled Dark Lord before it, which is same perfumer, same idea, just obviously it's stepped up a notch, isn't it? But it's yeah, it's the same idea, same kind of vibe, same plan. But it's horrifying, terrifying fragrance really for me. And maybe it's them associations, maybe it's just does this to everyone, I don't know. But it is a masterpiece, and it's one of the most unique, brilliantly put together fragrances I've ever smelled. So that's Gucci Guilty Abs. So yeah, it was a brief one, wasn't it really? And I hope there's no hate there. And we all like different things, don't we? It's all completely subjective. There's no right or wrong, or what's because somebody hates a fragrance you love, or because you love that fragrance you expect them to love it too. That's not how it works, is it? Some of us like olives, some of them find them repulsive. Fish eaters, pork eaters, you know what I mean? Some people like red wine, some people like white wine. Although technically, if you closed your eyes and they were served at the same temperature, even experts couldn't tell the difference. But I'm a red wine drinker, maybe because I like it the warmer or whatever. It's, you know what I mean? And my point is all completely subjective. There's no right or wrong answer, and you shouldn't have a go at anyone or get upset or what have you. And it's fragrance. It's all fun. Smelly water. Anyway, what would be on your list for this? Is the off chance you may agree with some of my choices? Not likely, is it? But yeah, thanks for the tag, Dr. Claire. Go check her out. And alright folks, thanks, bye.